This lesson is an introduction to species counterpoint. For a lot of this content, I owe a great debt to Brian Heyer from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, so thank you, Brian. If you are interested, you can find a PDF of Heyer's A Manual for Species Counterpoint with a quick Google search. So, species counterpoint, it arose in the late Renaissance as a pedagogical practice for both performers and composers. And this score is an example of first species counterpoint, a distinction I'll explain a little later. By design, all examples of first species counterpoint are composed entirely of whole notes. And as simple as it may appear at first glance, it is actually quite a complicated little piece. And we could look at the score all day, but it will likely have little meaning to us if we don't know what it sounds like. So let's listen to it. Now, ideally, you should sing this music with other people. It's an essential aspect of writing good melodies to experience the relative ease or trouble of accurately performing it. And this is especially beneficial if you have an untrained voice. Notice that the melodic range of each part or each voice of this piece is quite narrow. The upper voice has the span of a sixth, from C up to A. The lower voice is even tighter at a fifth, from the D to the A. Melodies with narrow ranges are frankly easier and less demanding to sing, and we're currently not interested in trying to compose music challenging for professional singers. Writing something complicated is actually pretty easy, but writing something elegant and straightforward and satisfying, that's a real challenge. When we're singing this music, it's preferable to vocalize on solfege syllables, and there are several different solfege systems. And my preferred method is unfortunately not the one authorized for use at the Oberlin Conservatory, but thankfully this is a college class, not in the conservatory, so I feel okay presenting my personal preference. I use the movable do system of solfege with law-based minor. If you'd like me to make a video describing this system in depth and why I like it, let me know. I'd be happy to do that. When performing these melodies, you should choose a moderate flowing tempo. It's not nearly as slow as it looks like it is on the page. And try to sing each melody in a single breath, singing as legato or as smoothly as you can. Let me sing both of these melodies using solfege just so you know what we're talking about. Here's the lower voice first. La, do, ti, la, re, do, mi, re, do, ti, la. Here's the upper voice. La, mi, re, do, ti, la, sol, ti, la, si, la. Notice that all these pitches are diatonic, meaning that they're in the key, except at the cadence. Since this example is in D minor, we're introducing the leading tone at the cadence in the next to the last measure. Most of the time, these melodies move in stepwise motion, so there aren't very many leaps. Instead of thinking of melodies as individual notes, it's useful to imagine melodies as constructed of arcs and curves, ascents and descents, slopes, profiles, whatever. Thinking of a musical stream flowing towards its cadence is a lot more beneficial than a stagnant swamp. Let me sing those one more time. Lower voice first. La, do, ti, la, re, do, mi, re, do, ti, la. And now the upper voice. La, mi, re, do, ti, la, sol, ti, la, si, la. The flow of a melody is kind of like the difference between active and passive writing. It's a pretty big deal, honestly, and it makes a huge difference in the quality of your writing. And for some reason, I love writing and speaking in passive voice. It's a major challenge for me not to use it. It's kind of like a disease I should be quarantined over. But notice the difference in the flow of these two sentences. Here's the passive version. The mail was delivered yesterday by a stranger. The mail was delivered yesterday by a stranger. The mail, which is probably not alive, is passively being delivered. It's much better to present the doer of the verb first, followed by the receiver of the action. It just makes logical sense in the flow. A stranger delivered the mail yesterday. A stranger delivered the mail yesterday. It's so much clearer, right? Listen to them back to back. The mail was delivered yesterday by a stranger versus a stranger delivered the mail yesterday. The flow of the active sentence is much clearer, right? Well, in species counterpoint, it provides a lot of grammar rules to help express the distinctive contour of a good melody. In counterpoint, especially in first species, both melodies should be about equal in melodic interest. This means that both voices are going to be independently coherent, and they don't distract attention from the other one. So notice that in our example, that the upper voice begins with a large leap of a fifth from D to A and then moves stepwise down. Now, a tonal melody is ultimately going to resolve back to the tonic at the end, in this case back to D. As the upper voice is descending stepwise, it passes the tonic pitch in measure 6. It keeps going, and having passed over its melodic goal, it then skips up a third, overshooting the target yet again in measure 7 and 8. But in measure 9, it finally reaches the tonic, and then it confirms this with the addition of the leading tone in measure 10. Now, there's a handy melodic theory that I incorporate all the time. It's called gap fill theory. Gap fill theory. A leap creates musical space, and then it's desirable and satisfying to fill in that gap, usually with stepwise motion. The space created by the opening leap is filled in entirely with stepwise motion in the upper voice. Now, there's a similar but less dramatic event that appears with the smaller skip of the rising third in measures 7 and 8. The gap fill theory. Let me play the whole upper voice again. Now, I would divide both of these melodies into two primary gestures, and gestures tend to conform to changes in melodic contour. Notice that though these both consist of two gestures, they're both out of sync with one another. The highest pitch in the upper voice, the A, there in measure 2, it only occurs once. This moment is called the apex. Notice that the word apex is singular, meaning it should only happen once during a counterpoint melody. Observe that the apex of both melodies occurs in different locations. Now, some people use the term climax in place of apex, but I believe the climax of a melody generally occurs at the moment of greatest tension, usually when the resolution to the final becomes most predictable. In other words, when the goal is on the horizon. In this particular piece, I hear the climax of both melodies in sync to be in measure 8. Do you see that the way the upper voice begins and the lower voice ends is similar? The upper voice begins by leaping up from D to A and then descends by step for several measures. The lower voice reaches its apex in measure 7, also in A, and then descends stepwise until cadence. I might even go so far as to show that in measures 4 to 7 in the lower voice, we're outlining the perfect fifth leap from the opening gesture of the upper voice. As we listen again, I want you to be aware of the melodic echo or the reverberating wave that's found in this piece, where the opening melodic gesture of the upper voice becomes the closing gesture of the lower. In other words, while these two melodies have distinct melodic contours, they also share similar features that help them to complement one another. Part of the appeal of species counterpoint is its insistence on focusing on both melody and harmony. That's the horizontal and vertical aspects of music. Many musicians focus too much on harmony and neglect to concentrate on the flow of the melodic line, especially composers. This is actually one of my biggest complaints about a lot of jazz and modern classical composition, is the preeminence of harmonic thinking. Instead of writing flowing melodies that seamlessly commune with organic harmonies, many compose derivative-sounding melodies that seem shackled to overly complex and disjunct harmonies. Now, I'm certainly not saying that harmony is unimportant. It's very important. It's just that musicians need to learn to balance all of the musical dimensions properly, especially composers. So far, we have focused exclusively on melody. That's the horizontal flow of the music towards the cadence. By the way, in counterpoint, the cadence is typically referred to as the final, as in the final note of the melody. Okay, let's see what's going on vertically or harmonically. We're going to want to label the harmonic intervals by their quantity number. Now, you should know the quality of the intervals, but it's not necessary to notate them on the score. All of the harmonic intervals present in this piece are consonant intervals, and that's so for all first species counterpoint. And we have two types of consonant intervals. We have perfect and imperfect. The perfect harmonic consonances are perfect octaves and perfect fifths. Now, the perfect fourth that I've left out is considered a harmonic dissonance. So the perfect harmonic consonances are perfect octaves and perfect fifths, but the perfect fourth is considered a harmonic dissonance. I'll explain the reason for that a little later. Now, in this example, we only have perfect octaves. Imperfect consonances are the major and minor thirds and sixths. Notice we have a lot of things labeled as tenths. So remember that an octave plus a third, 8 plus 3 equals 10, intervallically. Perfect consonances, although pure, are considered to be austere or rigid in sound, making them ideal for starting and ending a phrase. Imperfect consonances have a much sweeter quality than perfect consonances. In this example, we have both major and minor thirds or tenths, and only major sixths. These imperfect consonances, they fit marvelously between the perfect consonances that bookend the melodies. The result in this music is a rich and sonorous piece. Let's listen to it one more time. Now, in the next video, we're going to discuss the rules and guidelines for writing a single melodic line similar to the ones that we've looked at here. Thank you.